Good evening, afternoon or morning, Movie Cat is at the microphone and today I will tell you about the fantastic comedy, Black Knight.
Fire!
We have fire.
And in order not to lose this channel, I recommend you to subscribe. Jamal is an employee of Middle Ages World Amusement Park. The place has long lost its former popularity, and in 2 weeks a larger-scale competing project, called World of Castles, is expected to open next door. At the meeting, Jamal advises the boss not to compete, but to pack up the money and get out. Disappointed by this lack of enthusiasm, the boss instructs Jamal to polish the helmet and also clean the water ditch. Jamal goes to complete tasks, mentally already getting a job with future competitors. Among the debris in the water, Jamal sees a shiny medallion that could probably fetch some good money by pushing it into a pawn shop, and Jamal reaches out to take it. Suddenly he loses his balance, falling into the water and immediately emerges, but for some reasons, in the middle of a huge lake. Having reached the shore, Jamal meets a foul-smelling man in rags and iron shoes. He, being fairly drunk, introduces himself as a knight, Sir Nolte, and almost immediately passes out, falling face straight into the Don. To prevent the fragrant knight from dying, Jamal turns him over and sprays him with breath freshener. Jamal mistakes the drunkard for a tramp, gives him a couple of dollars for soap, then moves on. A man from the 14th century finds the only use for dollars, to throw it into a fire. Jamal, meanwhile, comes out of the forest and seeing a large stone castle, assumes that it belongs to their competitor from the world of castles, who are preparing to open. When Jamal is nearly run over by men in armor and on horses, he mistakes them for actors and heads to the castle to complain about them. He tells the guards that he came from Normandy Street and they easily let him through, because their king is just waiting for the ambassador from Normandy. In the city, Jamal watches a performance in a puppet theater about a certain hero, the Black Knight, a man in matte black armor. At the market, Jamal meets an unusually beautiful girl and tries to speak with her. The seventh lady in waiting of the princess, named Victoria, doesn't mind at all, because the man, contrary to usual, flirts with her, and then it turns out that he is also taught to read and write. Unfortunately, they are distracted by a guy who says that the king is already waiting for Jamal. Entering the door, Jamal introduces himself as Jamal Skywalker. King Leo is glad to see the envoy from Normandy, although he is surprised a little that he arrived 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Jamal still thinks that in front of him are good improvising actors, and therefore, to the king's question, when will the Norman prince arrive to marry his daughter, he answers, on Tuesday. The king is very pleased with this and orders the envoy to be fed and drunk to his fullest. He can also lie down with any woman he wants, except the princess, of course. Later, the servant shows the guest the execution in the square, and when the rebel's head rolls right into Jamal's hands, he realizes something is wrong here. Then he passes out. Waking up in Victoria's room, he falls into real hysterics after learning that it is not 2001, but 1328. Meanwhile, the girl became interested in the medallion on Jamal's neck, which he caught from the water. She has the same one, and it is the hallmark of all the conspirators, eager to kill King Leo. Victoria says that the current ruler is a usurper who brutally overthrew the Queen of England. Further discussion is interrupted by a servant who announces that the king is waiting for Ambassador Jamal for a horse ride. Jamal, realizing that he does not know how to ride a horse, tells the king that he is not only an envoy, but also a jester in Normandy, combining two crafts at once. Now all his ridiculous attempts to climb onto the horse and subsequent riding upside down look like an elaborate performance. At sunset, the king arranges a feast with dancing. That same evening, the conspirators are going to kill the king, finding an opportune moment. Jamal is not very happy with the sour song and asks the musicians to play more cheerfully. And then Jamal teaches the people to dance hip-hop. In the heat of dancing, delighted with his energy, the red-haired princess rushes at the ambassador and kisses him passionately. The king's warlord notices this and chases after Jamal to defend the girl's honor. The ambassador, driven onto the balcony, has no choice but to jump from there, holding onto the rope. By knocking the king off his feet, Jamal thereby saves him from the murderous conspirators, who have already taken their knives out of the breads. King Leo is amazed by the guest's act and, as a reward, appoints him as his new warlord. dismissing the previous one. The king also invites the ambassador, instead of returning to Normandy, to stay here forever. Jamal doubts a little, but after they offer him countless number of half-naked girls, he agrees. He even figures out how to make money here, bringing ideas from his time. For example, a chain of bistros serves you right on the horse. You jump to the window, take a hamburger, and then go further to kill your enemies. Suddenly, Jamal is urgently called by the king. It turns out that the warlord's duties include punishing the peasants who stole one turnip from the field to feed their family. Jamal grabs the peasant and drags him behind the house. There, Jamal punishes the peasant with some golden coins and a little bag to keep it there. In the evening, the king sends his maid Victoria to the chambers of his new warlord. But instead of body pleasures, she begins to scold Jamal for wearing the conspirator's amulet, but is in no hurry to kill the usurper. Then she leaves. Later, in the middle of the night, the girl enters the chambers and dives under the covers. In the morning, the real ambassador from Normandy arrives, and he and the king, not without curiosity, go to ask some questions to the impostor. The situation gets worse when the princess emerges from under the blanket, and although Jamal claims that she lost her innocence long before him, the angry ambassador leaves anyway, and with him a potential alliance with Normandy. The king throws Jamal into the prison, to the killers already sitting there, for an unsuccessful attempt to kill the king. The guys first praise Jamal for his brilliant plan to screw the princess in order to destroy the alliance with Normandy, and then, in order to relieve boredom, they tell the legend of the Black Knight, who will save them all by coming in the appropriate color of armor, spewing flames from his mouth. The execution is scheduled for the morning. The executioner tries to chop the melon with an axe, but without much success. This means that the execution will be quite long. Jamal doesn't want to die, but the king refuses to pardon him, so Jamal tries to scare everyone with a lighter. But people don't think it's cooler than a fire. Suddenly the executioner chokes on a melon, and the people think that it was the Moor who sent the damage. Jamal does not dispel their delusions, but saves the executioner. Suddenly, burning arrows fly into the square. It is Sir Nolt who came to pay back the debt to Jamal. For some reason, he shoots blindly from behind the wall, almost hitting in the ass the man he is saving. But the plan works and Jamal escapes. They come to the forest, where other oppressed people are hiding. Jamal wants to find a lake to return to his time and invites Victoria to go with him to eat fruit and drink cocktails on the Hawaiian Islands, already discovered in his time. The girl believes that it is her duty to kill the usurper, so she refuses. Jamal goes to the lake, but he is tormented by doubts. He has already warmed up to the people here and cannot remain indifferent to their difficulties. Suddenly he hears how some villains beating his friend Nolt in the forest, and Jamal intervenes to defend. The guys return to camp and Jamal notices that Victoria has been kidnapped. He invites people to rush to save her, but they don't really want to die. Among the ragamuffins there is the former queen, and through joint efforts the people manage to get into a fighting mood. Nolt teaches peasants how to use a sword, and Jamal shows how to properly drop an enemy. Using American football techniques, it was decided to attack the next morning, and Jamal gives Nolt his sneakers so that he can replace his iron shoes with them. Jamal says Nolt will be able to move easily if his legs don't weigh half a ton each. In response, Nolt gives the guest the knight's armor. In the morning, Nolt's squad enters the castle and is surrounded. But suddenly the Black Knight jumps out of the forest, breathing fire. This seriously frightens the king's warriors, who do not know that under the armor it is only Jamal, who at night painted it with resin and somehow attached polish and a lighter under the helmet. The battle is in full swing, and the king, in a panic, asks the warlord to leave quietly. But the warlord just throws the king off the wall, and a few minutes later the warlord dies at the hands of Sir Nolt. After the death of King Leo and his warlord, the queen awards Jamal with the title of Black Knight, according to the color of his armor. Suddenly, he wakes up from the shock of the defibrillator. Looking around, he realizes that it was all a dream, but his life is no longer the same. The concept of honor was deeply imprinted in his consciousness. Jamal encourages the boss, instead of running away with the money, to invest in the improvement of the entertainment entertainment center and give battle to competitors. A few weeks later, thanks to Jamal's efforts, the world of the Middle Ages again becomes a popular place for children to spend time. In one of the visitors, he recognizes Victoria, who calls herself Nikki. Trying to get her phone number, he runs after her across the moat. But someone pushes him into the water, and the next second Jamal stands up in the middle of the Colosseum full of spectators. Somebody shouts, "Release the lions!" Thank you for watching. And what times would you like to be in when you emerge from the lake? Write in the comments. Also, please do not forget to subscribe.